Welcome to Mountains Made Low, where we help our listeners to encounter the love of God and live well in the modern world. I'm Dennis Mueller.
And I'm Christine Reagan.
Today's episode grew out of a lot of pondering that I've been kind of doing lately as we deal with our beloved border collie, Rain. Maybe about 2 months ago, I guess it was maybe sometime in May, actually. She just kind of had this growth on the side of her face, and they initially thought it was a tooth, and they did blood work, and something came back kind of a little crazy with her liver, and so then they did another blood test, and something again definitely was wrong with the liver, and turns out, long story short, they didn't want to operate on the tooth to have it removed because she had a tumor on her liver and maybe something on her spleen. So we kind of waited. We're treating this with antibiotics, just kind of maintaining. Well, almost a month later, we're bringing her back because things are just kind of progressing worse with this growth on her face that looks like it's the tooth. And it turns out she had mouth cancer on top of that. So that, there was really nothing that they could do.
Yeah.
So it was rough. Rain has been with us since she was 3 months old. We purchased her from a breeder, and if I'm being completely honest, it was my decision. It was one of those decisions that you make kind of spur of the moment.
Yeah.
We had young kids. I mean, Noah, my youngest, he's 16 now, but he was like 2.5 at the time. But it was it might have been maybe about a year after I was diagnosed with cancer myself. And so in the back of my head, I'm still dealing with my own mortality and what's going to happen with this cancer, even though it's been removed, the tumor's been removed, and I've got a clean bill of health. Is it going to come back? And so in wrestling with my own mortality, what better thing to do than to get a dog? Let's get a dog. So if something happens to me, they have hugs and kisses galore with the dog. And so I did. It was almost like an impulse thing. I started looking just one day for border collies because I had one previously and I loved her. And next thing you know, we're taking a drive out on a Saturday, the whole family, let's go get a dog. See, I was smart too because I only brought enough money for one dog.
For one.
Yeah, I only had enough cash on hand for one dog because they were like, "Oh, can we get two?" And it was like a discounted type thing. He was
my goodness!
Might have been like maybe like $100 off the second dog.
It's like
or something.
a dog BOGO.
Yeah, right. But buy one get one discounted price. But it turned out to be a great decision in the end. Like I said, my oldest was 11. My youngest was maybe just over 3 when we got the dog.
They're beautiful dogs.
The last
too.
couple of months have been really, really rough. Just kind of watching her do that, and she's so pleasant. She's not complaining about anything. She's not whimpering. She's not being nasty because she's uncomfortable. She's just.
So she's not me.
Yeah, pretty much. But she's really good. You've had pets too, right?
I have. I grew up with a dog. I grew up with his name was Scooter. Sweet dog. He was a Schnauzer Poodle mix, so he was a schnoodle. And one of those designer dogs. And
right.
we had him for, I think, 16 years. He lived a very, very long time. But similar to Rain, he declined. Not quickly. It seems like Rain kind of went faster. Scooter was sick for a very long time. And we tried to put him down. Our family really struggled with the courage to kind of put him out of his misery because we knew he was really suffering. But he had been with the family for 16 years. Yeah. I think we got him when I was 9, and when he went down, I was married. So that was a really, really big deal. Sweet dog. But definitely Scooter was very formative. We have an artistic, somebody drew a picture of him, like a little painting. He still hangs in my parents' house. But he certainly was a member of the family, properly understood. Scooter was, Scooter Hall is what they called him. Yeah, a sweet boy. See how I even slipped into that? Sweet boy.
Right.
We give these animals human qualities, right? And it's all just because he was loved. He was loved.
And I think one of the reasons why I figured, let's do an episode on this, because there's so much to say about pets and maybe the type of relationship that we have with them, what that relationship should look like, what is healthy versus unhealthy, and maybe even...
And what role do they play in our lives,
too?
What do they contribute to our
Because they do.
Human experience?
They do play a very, very important role in our lives, and their benefit to our mental health and our well-being can't be understated. I mean, there's a ton of studies that show you the benefits of having an animal companion of some sort,
especially for children,
especially for children. Yeah, anxiety and worry and depression, all those things. But let's be honest, sometimes I think that we can cross the line when it comes to our love for our pets and how we express that love. And so as someone who loves his dog, I thought we would use this opportunity to have a conversation on what it means to love your pet and how to love your pet the right way.
Well, let's talk about the pet care industry. We have some stats. about the role that pet care plays in society, maybe even in our own lives. So let's run through this real fast. So the global pet market is a $300 billion industry, and that's from about 2022. I can't imagine it's gone down at all. The U.S. share of that, the contribution, is 56%, or roughly $170 billion.
So globally, it's 300 million, and just here in the United States, we have 56% of that share.
Yeah.
170
Clearly, we're in the wrong business. We should be professional dog owners
or something. Yeah, yeah.
30% of dog owners take their dog to a salon for grooming, which includes services like massage, doggy facials. I don't think that's that strange. I mean, most people get their dog groomed at what is essentially called a salon,
right?
A pet salon. I don't think that's that strange. Do I think that people go above and beyond? And do I think like exorbitant amounts of money are charged for these kinds of services? Yeah, I think that's a bit much.
Yeah.
Third statistic here. So 60% of U.S. households have pets with dogs and cats, being at the top of the list, compared to that 39% of U.S. households that have children under the ages of 18.
Some people might be thinking, well, that's not really a big deal. So what? So people have pets. So not everybody in a household has children. But that statistic is a little alarming, as we'll see in a little bit as we kind of continue our conversation.
All right, let's keep going. So studies also show that 67% of Gen Z adults and 43% of older millennials prefer pets to children, with 74% citing the expense of raising children as the reason. Okay. I have heard that many, many times. I'm not having children because it's just too expensive. Yeah. I can't pay for children. There's a lot to unpack there. 43% of married pet owners consider their pets not just a member of their family, but as an equal member of the family. So putting them on par with humans. Mm-hmm. And 42% put their pets on equal footing with their children. Lastly, 64% of couples without children and those who are single consider pets as a member of their family.
What's trending here is this equation where our pet is brought up to the same level of dignity as our children. What the statistics are really laying out here is how couples who are deliberately avoiding having or adopting children and choosing to substitute the parental love that they truly desire, that they were created for.
And they were created to give.
And that they were created to give for this pseudo-love of an animal companion and what that animal companion might provide them.
Aisha and I had probably been married for about 3 years. And my parents knew that we wanted to have children. And we're kind of waiting for when that was going to start, because my parents were like, hey, we're not getting any younger. We want to be grandparents. And they were already, but they wanted to see us have children. And they knew how important children were to married life. And I think they had seen maybe some of their friends' kids go in the direction of not having kids and focusing on career and pets and vacations and all this kind of stuff. So Sean and I had a conversation about getting a dog, and my parents were privy to that. And we were having dinner with them one night. We went over to their house, and my dad just kind of stopped everything and was kind of upset and just said, so you're just going to be dog people now? You're not going to have children? And it just kind of like came out of him. And I think it was so motivated by like, don't be swallowed up by the culture, right? Knowing that we weren't going to be, but right. It was obviously eating at him. And he also knew what was best for us. He knew it was good for us if we could have children to have children at some point. Yeah. And he was afraid, I think, just ever so much about a dog maybe delaying what he thought was best for us in that moment as a Catholic married couple. And I'll never forget it. We just kind of laughed and we were like, we're going to have children. And I think we probably had conceived shortly after that. And that was always the plan, but I'll never forget it. So you're just going to be dog people now? And I mean, this is something that is happening. It wasn't unfounded for him to react that way.
It is a concerning trend.
Yeah.
But some people who are listening might just be like, what are you talking about? This is not a big deal. In some regard, yeah, you're probably right. This is not really one of those top-level issues that be like, oh, this has to be addressed and this has to be dealt with. But we do need to have conversations about it, because I think what is happening is we're just kind of growing accustomed to this. Like, language is changing, how we act is changing. And then next thing you know, like the next generation, this is like perfectly acceptable.
Right, values are changing at the same time. Yes. That's what we're more concerned about.
Right, so if we're not having a conversation about it at least, and just kind of at least inviting some dialogue about it, then what we're doing is we're actually contributing to the problem, even though we might not even be involved in the problem.
Right. Certainly we're not condemning anybody. If you push your dog around in a stroller and that gives you joy, push your dog around in a stroller. Do whatever you want to do in that sense. Because I'm thinking about, okay, maybe somebody's older. They can't take their dog for a walk anymore because they'll pull them down the street.
Sure.
And so how can they manage something like that? Like I'm leaving room open for those kinds of things. So I think there are certain circumstances where it's like, of course, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And I think there are people who are out there, couples, maybe they desperately wanted to have children. It wasn't in the cards for them. They couldn't adopt or they didn't want to adopt. And having animals in the house does satisfy caring for another person the way that they hope they would. I think that is beautiful. I think that's valid. Please don't think that I'm certainly, I don't know about Dennis, but I'm certainly not condemning anything like that whatsoever. I'm not
Right.
casting judgment on it. I think that's beautiful.
And I would agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%.
I figured you did.
No, I do. I agree with you 100%. It's just, like I said, there's a line, and sometimes we go a little too far in that direction. If I can't walk the dog because of health issues, but I can push the dog around in the stroller just to kind of get outside, get some exercise, wonderful. But if I'm putting the dog in there and I'm dressing the dog up and I'm going a little bit like this is my baby, that's a
fur
concern.
baby, maybe?
Because you see, this is where like when you get into the statistic where how people put pets on equal footing with their children, some listeners may be like, well, who the heck does that? Well,
People do.
Take a look at some of the bumper stickers that are out there. My other kid is a Rottweiler. You see, I'm a dog parent or the grandparent of a Schnickerdoodle or whatever it is,
It's definitely a Schnickerdoodle.
Doodle,
Yeah.
like I don't know, a doodle poodle something, whatever.
A schnoodle.
Schnoodle, there we go.
A labradoodle.
Labradoodle.
Their doodles are getting into everything.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're French. The whole idea, behind all this stuff is like, again, what you see is the language is really mirroring some of these statistics, and it's
Sometimes,
revealing, it's revealing this underlying culture change, especially with regards to perception, all of these things. But you see people who push them around in strollers. I've seen people carry dogs in the baby wraps used for infants.
Listen, I agree with you. Obviously, these statistics mean something. So while I don't think a bumper sticker automatically reveals everything about how you think and feel about something, I still think it's relevant.
But don't you think like when you use those type of things that you're contributing to the perception and you're validating other people who really are crossing the line and carry that extreme?
I think it could. I don't know that people are always attributing that level of seriousness to it. But I don't disagree with everything else behind these trends. I think that animals have more rights in this country than our own children. Yeah. So I get into it maybe a little bit further down the road. But still, the term fur baby does give me pause.
Pope Francis weighed in on this back in 2022. He was talking about St. Joseph and the foster fatherhood of St. Joseph. It was a beautiful, beautiful commentary on the importance of adoption and foster fathering. But he made this one little remark about animals, and that's what the media runs with, like they do with everything when it came to him. So I'm just going to read you the quote.
Reading this whole thing?
Yeah, I'm going to read. Yeah, this is because I just think it's important for people to have the context, because when you don't have the context, then you're just get in line with the rest of the media there. The Pope said, "To bring a child into this world is not enough to say that one is also their father or mother. Fathers are not born, but made." And that's true. A man does not become a father simply by bringing a child into the world, but by taking up the responsibility to care for that child. You ask any mother that's dealing with a deadbeat dad, and she'll confirm that.
Mm-hmm. And any adoptive father would be like,
right.
I am the one who has provided for you and loved you and put you to bed and fed you and all that.
Mm-hmm. So whenever a man accepts responsibility for the life of another, in some way he becomes a father to that person. I think particularly of all those who are open to welcoming life by adoption, which is such a generous and beautifully good attitude. Joseph shows us this type of bond is not secondary. It is not second best. This kind of choice is among the highest forms of love and of fatherhood and motherhood. How many children in the world are waiting for someone to take care of them? And how many married couples want to be fathers and mothers but are unable to do so for biological reasons? Or, although they already have children, they want to share their family's affections with those who do not have it. We should not be afraid to choose the path of adoption, to take the risk of welcoming. How beautiful is that?
I love the risk of welcoming, because you could also say the risk of loving. There's so much Christianity there, like the risk of loving the way Jesus loved.
And then he just throws this in, and this is what the media latched on to. And today, even with orphanhood, there is a certain selfishness. The other day, I spoke about the demographic winter that exists nowadays. People do not want to have children, or just one and no more. How many couples do not have children because they do not want to, or they have just one because they do not want any more, but they have 2 dogs, 2 cats. Yes, dogs and cats take the place of children. Yes, it is funny, I understand, but it is the reality. And this denial of fatherhood or motherhood diminishes us. It takes away our humanity. And in this way, civilization becomes more aged and without humanity because it loses the richness of fatherhood and motherhood. And so what does the media do? The media runs with the Pope says that having dogs and cats is a form of selfishness. That's what they
definitely
heard.
how I read it.
That's what they read. What the Pope is really addressing, he's addressing this extreme that we're kind of talking about, that some of these statistics are leaning towards.
Yeah, the first half of that statement was really important, talking about fatherhood and motherhood and what it means to love and to love responsibly, too.
Using the example of pets, I think what he was just trying to say was how when we try to ignore the beauty of this gift that God has given us to be mothers and fathers, and what happens is we end up diminishing the role of father and mother, and we diminish our own humanity by that. Because what we do is we elevate our pets to the point that they replace the human person and are put on par with the human person.
And then we're channeling all of this energy that we were made to channel into, in God's wisdom and will, into another person. We're directing it wrongly. Yeah, the Pope didn't say that people who have pets instead of children were selfish. I think that's really important to say.
Yeah.
The media said that.
Media said that.
What the Pope said was that people who have the means to have children, means being financial security, physical capability, the means, but who then choose to have pets instead of children because they don't want children and use pets as a substitute for that, they're denying something that they were created for. They were denying their God-given motherhood, their God-given fatherhood. He's very right.
From a Catholic perspective, we have to remember, too, that when we exchange those vows, we promise to be open to the gift of children.
And that's so important because I've even had discussions like this in my own family with people when I say marriage has a purpose. And if you are not open to having children at any point in the life of your marriage, then why are you getting married? And the response I always get is, well, because we love each other. I said, well, okay. What does that mean, though? What is that love? It's ignorance. They just don't understand.
Right, I understand.
But if I were to get all the way down to the root, I would say there's selfishness there present, right? Or maybe fear, but something that has to be addressed, something else. I'm glad that we're establishing that it's important to be, if you're going to have children, to be able to pay for them, right? Financial means are really important. Emotional means are really important, right?
And so to be open to children, and you're having some, maybe now's not the time to do so financially, right? It
would be imprudent.
So it's okay to postpone it. You're still open to it. You just realize, like, now's not a good time.
The Pope is not saying you have to have you can't have any pets, and you have to have as many children as humanly possible.
Right.
Neither of those things are being said. Right. He's just addressing this trend of, like, married couples in particular, we're just going to live for ourselves. And being a parent is all about living for others.
So is marriage, not just parenthood, like marriage itself.
But yeah, living out your actual call to marriage. It always strikes me. I mean, we are living to the point where we are just determining our lives for ourselves, and we were never meant to live that way.
And I think that that's where the Pope is trying to kind of help us to understand that those type of choices, when we make them, there is an underlying selfishness that's there. We might not even be aware of it because we're not taking the time to pray, to discern, to do all those things. Language matters. When we refer to ourselves as a dog's dad, the dog's mom, a dog's grandparent, we have a tendency to dehumanize the human person. And I don't think it's intentional, but that's the reality. Man was given dominion over the animals because of his inherent dignity, having been created in the image and the likeness of his creator. There's no other species on the planet that's created in the image and likeness of God.
Yeah.
And so to place any animal on par with a human being diminishes the human person. And that's what the Pope's talking about. It diminishes our humanity when we do these things. And if we treat dogs like human persons, it doesn't take much of a leap to begin viewing or treating the human person like dogs or animals. And people might sit back and say, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I can't believe they're talking about all this stuff. But if you don't believe that it's easy to turn around and take a human being and reduce them to something that's inhuman, on par with an animal, all you have to do is go back and take a look at your history.
Yeah, people have been cruel to other people for a very long time.
My gosh, just take a look at the number of genocides that were going on the last century.
Genocide that's going on right now in other parts of the world.
Yeah. And let's not forget, I mean, you have the whole Holocaust, 6 million people who were
denied their dignity.
And treated like animals. This is not far-fetched. It's there. And like, as I was pondering all these things, I was just sitting there thinking to myself, we love our dog.
What did you love about her?
We love the dog because of what she is doing for us, really. She's bringing great joy. She would entertain us. The peace, the comfort that she would bring sometimes in those like dark, scary, anxious moments, just having that comfort.
Closeness.
And people who have dogs know that because they experience that all the time. People who have cats know that. I suspect that those who have strong feelings toward their pets might even be ready to maybe throw me to the wolves because of what we're talking. What we're talking about here. I just think it's something that we need to think about. I mean, if you're a pet owner, are you carrying things to an extreme a little bit? I think, like most everything else, I think a lot of people would just deny it and say no. Like that polarization.
Yeah.
You're wrong. You do your own thing. Don't get into my business type thing. We do need to have conversations. We need to have some hard conversations about some of these things.
You do feel very strongly about this.
Yeah. I mean, as a pet owner, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if I were to like walk down my regular block where I live, I don't know that the average person is treating their dog in a way that is in excess. I think we could. And I think culturally, the messaging is to treat your dog better than you don't have children, get more pets. I just think that when we begin to treat our pets with a greater dignity than we do our own children and our fellow human beings, we're feeding this like disordered relationship. And in some ways, we're already doing it. There are instances where animals, like I said before, have more rights than unborn children, right? You can kill a child in the womb, but there's serious felony penalties for dog fighting, for animal cruelty. But the government will even pay for you to abort your own child. So there is something wrong in society. I see it all the time. I see young couples who I think are probably very fertile, just shutting it down, saying, no, I'm not going to give my life over to this. Partially because the culture that I live in doesn't even value children to begin with. So I have not been conditioned to value children.
So you see this almost as symptomatic of something larger than
yes, absolutely. Okay. And I think you do too.
Of course, yeah. But I really hadn't thought about it on that level.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think the less we value human life, the more we will value things in a disordered way. And so, I mean, I think the benchmark of the litmus test of a society and of a country is how you treat your children and your unborn children. That will tell me everything I need to know about your society as a whole.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So, I remember my parents pointed this out when I was young. Do you remember the ASPCA commercials where it was like Sarah McLachlan singing, in the arms of the... Do you remember that?
Yeah, something, yeah.
Yeah, and it would just show you very sad images of animals in crates and all terrible things that should not be happening. I remember my parents are like, where are the unborn babies? Let's play that same music over young children, young babies, or pictures of ultrasounds of children who will never be born, something like that. And I'm like, yeah, but they wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. Why? Or people want us to think the animals matter more. Yeah. I mean, this is the hard truth of things. If you were to see children like that in cages, I mean, you would even look away. I don't know. It'd be so hard to look at. Well, you couldn't bear it.
But just look, and you're right. But look at the recent uproar with all of the immigration and all of the detention centers along the border. And all of these images that were surfacing about children in cages. And there was outcry. There was, outrage.
Yeah.
And so that outrage is justified because people recognize right away the dehumanization that is taking place in those situations. And then in these type of situations, sometimes with our pets, we don't recognize it for what it is because it's cute and it's adorable. But there's still a level of dehumanization that takes place there when we begin to elevate our pets and put them on the same par as our children, like that one statistic.
I hear you. I know. It's a complicated issue. It's tough. And actually, maybe it's not that complicated. Maybe it's pretty cut and dry.
This type of stuff needs to be addressed. It needs to be spoken about. Yeah. If I had somebody in my family who was behaving this way, I would definitely be having a conversation with them, trying to help them to see what they're doing. Again, helping them to understand why, helping me to understand why. But these are the conversations you have to have. So all of this aside, how do you properly love your pets? How do we properly love our pets? Because even the Catechism of the Catholic Church tells us that we should love our pets.
Sure. I know so many priests who have dogs. And that's what I'm saying. Like they don't typically have children because priests usually are not married.
Right.
And they have a very special relationship with that dog.
Because they're probably living in the rectory by themselves. There is nobody there. So there's a sense of companionship.
Right.
I get it.
And that's valid.
Right.
100%.
But if my pastor started walking Fido around the parish grounds dressed up and in a stroller, I would have some serious concerns.
I would have concerns about other things also. But yeah. That's not where my concerns would end. That's where it would begin.
But there was an article by a man he's Andrew Petiprin, and he often writes on the Catholic Answers website, and he provides a lot of guidance on a lot of different things. But he had an article that kind of spoke to this in particular. And what he said in that article, he said it's important for us to get our ologies correct. We have to get our ologies in the right order. And he's talking about the order of our relationships, what makes our relationships right ordering, not right versus wrong, but right ordering. The first ology that we have to acknowledge, the primary one that supersedes any other ology that we're going to take a look at, is theology, that idea, who is God?
Who is God? God is I'm going with the Baltimore Catechism, what it says. It says God is the creator of all things, heaven and earth. That's what the Baltimore Catechism says about God. He's perfect love. He is a family of love, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So that's who God is in his own self.
It's the theology. God needs to be our primary focus, our primary concern, because we are creatures of the Creator. We're all destined for heaven. We've a lot of different things that we've talked about on this podcast. So that's first. In a right ordering, God is always first in any type of relationship. The second is...
Well, it's also the first commandment, too.
That's right.
Love the Lord your God. The Lord your God.
The second is anthropology. What is a human being? What does it mean to be a human being?
Can I go with the Baltimore Catechism again?
Sure.
Baltimore Catechism says that a human being is created body and soul and made in the image of God. That's what a human person is.
That idea that we're created in the image and likeness of God. We bear free will. We have a rational mind. We have a rational soul. We've talked about how those are in a diminished state because of the effect of concupiscence and sin, but it's still rational. We're able to make free choices. We're able to think for ourselves. We're able to hope. We're able to dream. All of those things. And then the third is zoology, which is what is an animal? What is every animal? This is what Petiprin wrote. He says, an animal has personality, but it does not have a rational soul or will. An animal cannot sin, and an animal is not conscious of, nor does it strive for, heavenly bliss. An animal communicates certainly, but not with anything like human language or reasoning. An animal is, and an animal acts. When a dog, cat, deer, or rhinoceros is thirsty, he drinks, but he cannot think, drinking is good for dogs, or I am made for drinking.
That is so well said. Those examples are great because, I mean, you should be able to look at a human, look at a dog, look at what they're able to do, and then realize that the human expression of that is so much more complex. And the loving relationships that a human person can engage in. Nobody would say that dogs don't have a love that is specific to what they're capable of doing with their owner, right? Watch those. I catch Sean sometimes watching those videos of soldiers coming home from war, and their dogs are like stoked that they're back. I mean, it's beautiful. He's there crying, watching these videos, and I'm like, I think you've done that enough. But even the loving relationships between two people are so much more complex than what exists between a human person and a dog, or another dog to another dog.
That's right. Just like an animal is capable of communicating, but not like we do as human beings, not without reason and not with language or anything, dogs are certainly capable of showing affection.
Yeah.
They're capable of that, but it's not the same level of affection that is exchanged between human beings. They're not reasoning, they're not thinking through this. And so animals have their own dignity because of this zoology, which is very separate and distinct from the human dignity that's afforded us through our anthropology. And so there's a definite pecking order here. And there's a right ordering of relationships here. Our pets, no matter how cute they are, how smart we think they are, no matter how much joy they bring us, how close we feel to them, how much we think we love them, and how much we think they love us, they should never rise to the point where they become equal to us in dignity.
Because that's not how they were created.
That's not how they were created.
Right.
Yeah, they weren't meant
There's
that.
a wisdom to what God's doing.
Yeah, and we see that in Scripture. Scripture establishes this order in the very beginning of God's Word in the first 2 chapters of Genesis. There's no substitute for a man's partner aside from a woman and vice versa. That opens up a whole other can of worms for another day.
And then true, and we should open that at some point. But there's also that commandment to be fruitful and multiply. So that's very relevant here in terms of people choosing to have pets over having children, if they're able to do so.
And then the Catechism of the Catholic Church also offers some guidance with regards to pets.
Yeah,
and
so the
animals.
Catechism says in 24:16, it says, "Animals are God's creatures. He surrounds them with his providential care. By their mere existence, they bless him and give him glory. Thus, men owe them kindness, and we should recall the gentleness with which saints like St. Francis of Assisi or St. Philip Neri treated animals."
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because if you look at the life of St. Francis, he didn't just love animals because they were cute. It was deeply theological for him. You know, in an animal, and he even talked about kind of like behind the eyes of an animal, he saw the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah. He wasn't a pantheist,
Right,
right?
right.
He
And
wasn't seeing God in the rocks and the trees and the animals, but he realized that these things gave glory to God.
Yes. And he understood God more and what God was creating.
Right.
He also looked at the world and did this. Remember his Canticle of the Creatures, where he
Yes.
talks about brother sun and sister moon and stuff. And those are not even living in the way that animals are.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, animals are that much more valuable because we do experience some of the same things. We need sleep. We need to be cared for. We need shelter. We need food. So we can see ourselves in an animalistic kind of way, in a proper sense. And that's good for us. We can reflect on God's creation and God's goodness by having even a limited shared experience with what we experience and what they experience. But it's still different. It's still different. Yeah.
And it has to be different.
It has to be different.
It has to be different. That's what I'm trying to stress here is that it needs to be different because when we begin to blur the lines there, we start to walk a very dangerous road.
I think St. Francis's focus on animals helped him understand human love even more. I think it illuminated something that was far more important between man and God and what the gifts that God has given to man, right? The animals being a gift that God has given. Yeah. Then again, there's another paragraph in the Catechism. This is 24:18, and it says, "It is contrary to human dignity to cause animals to suffer or die needlessly. It is likewise unworthy to spend money on them that should, as a priority, go to the relief of human misery." So there's even a hierarchy of needs here, too, and mercy. One can love animals. One should not direct them to the affection due only to persons.
And that's the important thing, too, that we see from the Catechism. It's speaking to this right-ordered relationship that we should have with our pets. Yes, we can love our pets, and yes, we can feel emotional ties to our pets. That's all good and wonderful. But if we begin to direct to them the affection that should only be due to a fellow human being, then we're kind of blurring the lines. I'm just trying to exercise some caution here for pet owners. You just want to make sure that there's a distinct relationship between the hierarchy here in your family when it comes to our pets.
They teach us something. If I could just go to something that happens in the Bible. So if you go to the Old Testament, the prophet Nathan, David has sinned against Uriah by taking Bathsheba. And in order to teach David something about his own sin and what he's done, he sends the prophet Nathan to go to him and talk to him. He gives them this parable, right? You know the parable I'm talking about, right? And the image that is illustrated there is beautiful. It's this poor man and his little lamb. And the beautiful relationship, it does say that this man cared for this lamb as though he was his own child. And so treating our pets with love and providing for them is elevated in the scripture too. But ultimately, that story is used to say, look at how this man treated his animal, and look how you treated another human person.
Yes.
So it was used as this instrument of understanding and teaching.
But it was also to show you the distinction and the elevation of the human
That's my
person
point,
over the
yeah.
animal. David is outraged over this because of what happened to this man's animal. And here he's done this to another human being through having Uriah killed so he could have Bathsheba. Oh, like when that hit him, he realized his own sin.
And if you don't know the story that we're talking about, it's in, where is it? 1 Kings?
I think it might be, yeah.
Somewhere, it's somewhere in there. And again, he doesn't say that the man who took care of the lamb should die. There's a rich man who comes and takes the lamb, as a feast for his own kin. He took something that wasn't his. But the man, mourned this loss of relationship, and David was offended by the fact that the lamb and the man would not be together anymore. So read the story. It's good. Yeah. Nathan's parable in the Bible.
So no matter how much we love our pets, they're not capable of love or friendship the way that human beings are, because those require a rational will, which pets don't possess. Love is a choice. Extending friendship is a choice. Maintaining both is a rational act of the will. And our pets simply can't do this in that same way because they were never really meant to do that. Can they show love and affection? Absolutely.
It's specific to them.
But it's specific and it's unique to them. They're loving you in their dogness. They're loving you within the capability that they have as a dog. But it's not a rational choice. It's not a deliberate choice on their part. Can they bring joy, comfort, a sense of company and companionship? Absolutely.
And when it's not there anymore, there's a loss.
It is.
That's what you're kind of going through right now.
Yeah. But it's not intentional. It's not intentional. It's not by an act of their will. They have no idea that they're doing this. Right? They have no idea that they're doing this. Can we love our pets? Absolutely. But that love has to remain in a right, ordered relationship.
What do you think about
that's the important
those
thing.
Animals that they say will go to a cemetery? They'll sit on the top of the grave of their master for days upon days. There are stories of that going on.
I know.
It's remarkable, actually. It's holy in its own way. Regardless of anything we're saying today, I'm moved by those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
Because it does show that God's creation's capable of incredible things.
Uh-huh. I'm not saying that there's not a connection between a pet and their owner. Right? Sometimes those
trying
connections.
To humanize you.
Well, no, I think I've been human throughout the whole thing.
You have.
There could be a very deep and a very profound connection. And I know because I've experienced them myself, but I've always maintained a right-ordered relationship. Yeah. You can hug your dog. Your dog gets excited. My dog would always be there at the door, more so than my kids sometimes when I would come home if the door was open, just waiting for me. She'd hear me pull up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is that. There is that connection. They do have that special connection. It's a beautiful connection. But we just want to make sure that that's a right-ordered relationship. Sadly, we took Rain to the vet yesterday to put her to sleep, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. All 4 of my kids came along with my wife and I. Lots of tears, lots of hugs. They knew that this day was coming. We had talked about it earlier in the week. It's horrible when you go through all of this stuff, especially when you know it and it's planned out because you don't want your dog to suffer. I mean, she had turned and it was just sad to see her in that state. She was still affectionate, but you could tell she wasn't herself. She wasn't comfortable, not complaining, but she wasn't comfortable, and the condition was getting worse and worse, especially with her. Like she wasn't able to see out of the one eye all of a sudden because the tumor had grown, and she was having difficulty eating, and it was lethargic. She would just stand in front of our air conditioner pretty much all day, lie in front of it because it was bringing her some form of comfort, that cool air. But she was a great dog. She brought our family great joy over the last 13 years, and she meant a great deal to us. And if you ask anybody in our home, they would tell you without any hesitation that they loved her, including me. But we loved her properly. We cared for her. We fed her. We played with her. We brought her on vacation. We walked her. We would roughhouse with her. We loved snuggling with her when she would allow you to. And even tricking her when it came to giving treats and kind of pulling that pulling the wool over our eyes with some of these things. Like I said earlier, I mean, she brought us great comfort during dark times, times of worry, easing our anxiety with just something to hug, or just going out for a walk just to kind of maybe vent a little bit, or just to kind of think and not to be alone, just to have that. And the 6 dozen licks that she would give you. I mean, she was a licker extraordinaire. She licked everything and everyone constantly. And
I think she licked my foot one time.
yeah, it's just, yeah, she was that was her. She was neurotic about it. That's how it was an obsession with her licking things. But at the end of the day, she was our dog. She was our pet. I was her owner. I wasn't her pet daddy. I was her master, not her BFF. It doesn't diminish the relationship that we had by thinking that way. It doesn't diminish the love that she brought to our family in any way, thinking that way. Because it's properly ordered, none of that's distorted. None of that's distorted. We grieved yesterday. We all grieved. We're still grieving now. But it's a grief that's appropriate to the relationship that we had with Rain. There's no wailing and gnashing of teeth because I lost my baby.
But there's strong emotion nonetheless.
Yeah, there is. Oh, yeah,
Yes.
There's absolutely strong emotion. So I'm not diminishing any of this, but I just think it's important for us just to kind of have a good understanding and a right ordered relationship when it comes to how do we love our dog properly. It's good to love your pet, but if you're loving your pet maybe more than your children, more than your spouse, more than a fellow human being, you might need to pause and to take stock of things. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because like I had a friend kind of say, I don't understand why it's okay to euthanize a dog, but you can't euthanize a person. I didn't get into that conversation with them. That it wasn't really the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand where people would kind of think to that if they don't have an understanding of the dignity of the human person.
Right.
And I think that comment even speaks to the lack of awareness of the dignity of the human person and how we are different. It kind of plays into what we're talking about today, where the idea is, well, if I can do it to a dog, why can't I do it to a person?
But yeah, they think I'm putting one out of their misery, I'm putting the other out of their misery, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a good thing to do in both cases? Well, one thing is not like the other.
That's a topic for another discussion, but I think comments like that really just show the disparity that exists with how we view the nature of these relationships,
right?
That we have.
Yeah, the resurrection of the dead for people is a game changer. It doesn't mean that I don't think animals are in heaven, but...
And the church has no definitive statement on that because that's not something that's been divinely revealed to us. And many popes have kind of weighed into it. Some popes have kind of said no. Other popes have said yes. Other popes have kind of left the door open, saying it's a very distinct possibility. The reality is we just don't know. That's when it gets into speculative theology, what they call speculative theology. All we can do as theologians is speculate. We often hear in Scripture, too, how at the end of time, there'll be a new heaven and a new earth.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like thunder.
But well, go ahead.
No, that was it. I was just going to say, new heaven and a new earth. If there's animals on earth right now, wouldn't that mean that there would be some element of that and then some in the life in the world to come?
And you have to remember, like, all creation is fallen.
Right.
All creation is fallen. It's not just human beings. All creation is wounded by the act of Adam and Eve, which is why sin and death and our world is very, very imperfect aside from human behavior. Right. So at the end of time, all of this is going to be brought into a state of perfection and peace.
The lion will lay down with the lamb. Think about those images.
Yeah, beautiful images. So who's to say? I don't concern myself about things.
Yeah, I'm worried if I'm going to go to heaven.
Right.
I'm not so much worried about pets. I think God has all of this. He's perfect. His wisdom is perfect. His will is perfect. I'm going to be just fine, and they are too.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. Well, that was a good one.
Well, we'll see. I mean, if we get tarred and feathered, or if I get tarred and feathered over this.
Yeah, please direct all your angry emails to Dennis. But I'm worried about my own salvation. That's all I'm worried about.
Right.
But yeah, if you like this episode, please comment, subscribe, and can't wait to see you next week.
All right. God bless.